The U.S. punishes Osama bin Laden and his terrorist sympathizers.
The action was swift and widespread, but the war is far from over.
So tonight, Metro Detroit is now on even higher alert.
Team coverage from our Local 4 and National Security Team tonight at 11.
Way to protect my teeth from cleaning to cleaning.
It helps prevent stains and tartar from coming back from one cleaning to the next.
Aquafresh Multi-Action Whitening. Its stain and tartar defense formula is proven to get your teeth whiter. Then it keeps them whiter by preventing new stains and tartar too.
And protects your whole mouth, teeth, gums, and breath.
Aquafresh Multi-Action Whitening.
It's not just a toothpaste.
It's the whole mouth paste with stain and tartar defense.
Oh, Lucy, Ruby, Maggie, Phoebe, Jane. All the little ladies driving me insane. Got me on a leash, Mary Lou in a lane. Pulling me around like a ball and chain. Dr. Pepper, you make the world taste better. Dr. Pepper, you make the world taste better.
In an instant, everything can change. Yet everywhere you look, the spirit of America is alive. That spirit makes us what we are today and what we will be tomorrow. We at Ford want to celebrate that spirit with the Ford Drives America program to help America move forward with interest-free financing on all new Fords. That's any new Ford car, truck, or SUV, now with interest-free financing. The spirit is alive with America's #1 choice. Ford Drives America.
Hate crimes mostly start with hate speech. So watch what you say, especially in front of your kids.
What is a parent's worst nightmare?
Please help!
Mr. Attorney General?
% store-wide with 0% interest for 2 full years. No down payment, and Art Van will pay your sales tax. Hurry into Art Van's Columbus Day sale, going on now. Special hours Monday, 10 to 10.
It's the Mercury 2001 clearance with great model year-end savings on every 2001 Mercury in stock, including Mercury Sable LS Premium with no charge leather seating surfaces, no charge ABS, power adjustable pedals, and a 5-star crash test rating. Now returning lessees can lease one for just $249 a month for 24 months with $25.64 cash due at signing during the Mercury 2001 clearance. See your Metro Detroit Mercury dealer today.
Ooh, I'm scared. Let's take a shortcut through the park.
Halloween 5 at Cedar Point. 6 huge weekends to scream. In the all-new Fright Zone, meet the Screamsters. New and improved hauntings are everywhere. Monster coasters rule the dark. For children, Camp Spooky. And the new magical house on Boo Hill. Halloween 5, only at Cedar Point. Visit cedarpoint.com if you dare. Hold on.
Okay, kids.
Mom, we have our phones. We can check in.
Okay.
Introducing the Family Share Plan from Verizon Wireless. Now your family can share a ton of minutes on one calling plan.
Hey, Mom, Crimson or Candy Apple Red?
With up to 4 separate lines.
Is 20 feet enough?
Hurry in and buy one Nokia phone for $29.99 and get up to 3 free with activation.
Honey, do we need an extra hand?
And now get an extra 3,000 night and weekend minutes to share. Just call 1-800-2-JOIN-IN today. Now that's something the whole family can get excited about. Verizon Wireless. Join in.
Man, they fast. You telling me? All Tracker, we protect those we serve.
Licensed, bonded, insured, with trained personnel. All Tracker, your solution for security, investigations, and patrol.
Thanks, All Tracker.
If you're a traveler, you already know that life at Metro Airport has changed dramatically since last month's terrorist attacks. The question tonight is what's going to happen there now that the U.S. has responded with military action.
Local 4's team coverage continues with Art Edwards. He's live at Metro with the latest on the situation there. Art?
Security is a little bit tighter here. The FAA went to another security level, but the likelihood is that the passengers here are not going to notice anything different than they have since the flights resumed after the terrorist attack. When we talk to the passengers today, they are getting here earlier and they're dealing with things the best way they can. It's busy at Metro Airport this Sunday night. Scores of passengers arriving in Detroit from all over the country and making their way to final destinations. A few people arrived at the airport to take flights out and took advantage of the curbside check-in. At the ticket counter, slow but steady progress. The FAA has increased the security level, but passengers probably can't tell the difference. By the time most of these people made it to the airport today, they already knew about the military action.
Yeah, I was watching the race when the news came on. The race was about ready to start. And as soon as I seen it coming on, the first thing I thought is, are we going to fly today, or are we going to, we're going to be waiting, just waiting?
His flight left on schedule. Some of the people hungry for information about the military action gathered outside a shop in the terminal that had turned televisions to coverage of the attack. While there is some uneasiness, most people feel safe traveling.
Well, there wasn't any apprehension at all. Security was much tighter than I thought it would be. We came in from Richmond, Virginia, and the line was almost as long as the ones that are here, and Richmond is a smaller city than this. So the security was tight.
Now, because security is tighter out here at the airport since the attacks on September the 11th, everybody's been told that they should get here a couple of hours early, and that should hold true for any travelers who are going to be leaving tomorrow morning. The first international flight in the morning is at about 9 o'clock, and there should be other domestic flights leaving earlier than that. The best guess is that you would want to get here at least 2 hours before your flight leaves. Reporting live from Metro Airport, Art Edwards, Local First.
All right, thank you, Art. The famous red carpet is rolled up tonight after a decision to call off the Emmy Awards. The show's organizers postponed the program scheduled for tonight in Los Angeles because of the military strike in Afghanistan. Production workers spent the day breaking down and pulling up the carpet on which stars make their grand entrance to the show that honors the best in television. Organizers say the Emmys would have been inappropriate at this time.
The decision to postpone the telecast tonight is not based on any specific threats. No new information was developed or conveyed to us in any way that would imply that this telecast would have presented another target.
The Emmys were also postponed 3 weeks ago because of the terrorist attacks. No decision has been made about whether to reschedule.
Tough one. Well, our America Strikes Back coverage continues. After this next break, we'll check in with Reynolds Wolf. He's got a look at the forecast for the week ahead.
First, former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger reacts to the attack on Afghanistan.
I think they've behaved in a very mature and effective way. They've assembled their forces. They gave an opportunity for the Taliban to respond to their requests, and they have organized what is needed for a long-run campaign, if that's what turns out to be necessary.
Hello, I'm Ron Rice of the Detroit Lions and founder of the Ron Rice Foundation. Here to talk about a way you can win and a way our kids can win too. You can win a PT Cruiser courtesy of Sunoco on Local 4. Stop by a Sunoco station and pick up a registration card. And our kids can win when you help support the Ron Rice Foundation. Call 313-964-4059 to find out ways you can help our kids become winners. Courtesy of Sunoco, Local 4, and the Ron Rice Foundation.
This is Team 1270, Detroit's new sports leader with coverage of the Lions, Tigers, and Red Wings. And where Kurt Gibson, Gary Danielson, and Eli Zaret take you inside the locker room.
Steve Eiserman, welcome inside the locker room.
All on Team 1270, Detroit's new sports leader. We got game.
Thinking about painting your car? Stop thinking, do it. Maaco's still offering the Ambassador Paint Service for only $189, the best economy paint service in America. For a great finish and a beautiful deal, call 1-888-MAACO-USA.
This Local 4 Ask the Pros moment is brought to you by Hillside Furniture in Bloomfield Hills.
One of our most frequently asked questions is, why can one leather sofa sell for $700 and another one for $2,000? Some stores advertise leather, but they're not all leather. Make sure that you ask if it's top grain leather all over, or if they use vinyl or split leather to bring the price down. Split leather is the underside layer that does not have the same strength and wear as full top grain. So next time, make sure that you ask if it's top grain leather all over before buying.
For more answers to your consumer questions, click on AskThePros.com or call.
It's the Mercury 2001 clearance, with great model year-end savings on every 2001 Mercury in stock, including Mercury Sable LS Premium with no-charge leather seating surfaces, no-charge ABS, power-adjustable pedals, and a 5-star crash test rating. Now, returning lessees can lease one for just $249 a month for 24 months, with $25.64 cash due at signing during the Mercury 2001 clearance. See your Metro Detroit Mercury dealer today.
We're learning more about the first wave of attacks in Afghanistan. Let's go back to Michael Ann Wolf. She's live in the newsroom with these latest developments. Michael Ann?
Carmen, the Air Force has allowed 5 of the pilots who flew those first attacks on Afghanistan to talk briefly by telephone with reporters. Now, they tell reporters that they did face some anti-aircraft fire, but did not feel threatened at any time. Remember, these are the 5 pilots who took part in the first airstrikes against Afghanistan. They say their planes were actually being fired at, but never hit. Now, they were allowed to talk on the condition that we not use their real names or any specifics about the mission, but they report that the weather was clear. They felt their briefings were very, very accurate, and they encountered no major problems, that everything ran very smoothly, much as it had been planned and practiced by the airmen. That's as much specifics as they were allowed to give us. They said they felt well prepared for this. They also described soldiers lining the runways as their planes took off and feeling very proud at that moment to be serving their country, and very proud to be taking part in all of this. That's the very latest. Michael Ann Wolf, Local First.
All right, Michael Ann. And she mentioned the weather being clear, according to the pilots there. As we all developed a little bit of savvy during the Gulf War, we learned that clear nights, especially bright moonlit nights, might be a sign that something was in the offing, and that's what they had last night.
Hey, perfect conditions for an offensive, and it looked like obviously today was the day. And it'll be great for aviators over there as the Allied forces are gearing up once again. Conditions over there, well, let's go to the weather maps and show you what they can expect. As we go from Motown all the way over to the Middle East, looks like their conditions will really not be all that bad. The sun is up over there, and temperatures, well, they're on the way up too. In fact, we're expecting a high over in Afghanistan. Temperatures mainly up into the mid to upper 70s. In Kabul, you can expect about 79 degrees. Closer to home, it's an entirely different story, obviously. Temperatures here, way cool, like 36 degrees in Howell, 31 in Lansing, 36 degrees in Flint, 30 in Ann Arbor, 39 at Metro. We have a frost and freeze advisory in effect, and it is freezing, and we already have some frost up to the north, especially in the Sioux, with 31 degrees, 31 in Houghton, and 35 in Traverse City, currently 30 in Alpena. Well, we have a little bit of precipitation right up along the thumb. Most of it is just a few snowflakes here and there. No significant accumulation expected. That big high that's been giving us great conditions for the, well, last couple of days will move off to the east, and as it does, we can expect more of a southerly breeze tomorrow, giving us warmer conditions. Your forecast for tonight, here you go. Let's go to it quickly. Clear and cold, 28 degrees. That will be the overnight low temperature. As you go to tomorrow's forecast and beyond, 55 degrees the high, sun and clouds, more clouds later on. It's a few sprinkles possible overnight. A look at the next 4 days shows temperatures going up to 70s. Yeah, kind of like that for Wednesday. And the future forecast shows rain will be back in the forecast mainly on Friday and Sunday. So there you go.
We'll focus on Wednesday.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
All right, Reynolds.
Well, thank you, Reynolds. And Sunday's a big day in sports. Let's turn to Fred McLeod and catch up with what's going on.
Yeah, final episode of that 70s show out in San Francisco. Barry Bonds didn't mind breaking up Mark McGwire's home run record. In fact, he obliterated it. Today, number 73 for the brand new home run king at Pac-Bell Park, causing a slight stir beyond the right field wall. His 4th homer of the weekend. Now it remains to be seen if the Giants can afford to keep Barry this winter. And in San Diego, Ricky Henderson has added his name to the 3,000 hit club list.
Right field. Is it going to fall? Is it going to fall? There it is! There it is! Number 3,000 for Ricky Henderson.
Henderson is the 25th player to reach 3,000 hits, so Cooperstown now awaits him. The record will show the Tigers finishing with the 5th worst record in baseball. They have ended with a 10-4 loss to Kansas City today. Carlos Beltran had 2 homers and 6 RBIs. Tigers wind up 66-96, their worst finish in 13 years. Meanwhile, the Lions are still a 2-touchdown underdog tomorrow night, of course, as the Rams are here. Today, the Packers lost to Tampa Bay. Meanwhile, a great finish here. Cardinals and Eagles. Jake Plummer on the money with 9 seconds left, finding his man, the game-winning touchdown, and Dave McGinnis didn't know if he was coming or going, but didn't care as Marte Jenkins made him a very happy coach. 21-20 the final score.
Great game. Yeah. The Rams are not what the Lions need tomorrow night, though. When you're 0-2, that's not the team.
That's why they're a 2-touchdown favorite.
It's going to be tough. All right. Local First News at 11 will continue here in just 2 minutes.
First, New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani reacts as America strikes back.
All New Yorkers, I'm sure, join me in supporting President Bush in the action that he is taking in order to defend the United States, in order to do everything that he can to bring to justice the people responsible for the World Trade Center attack, and also to eliminate terrorism and terrorists so that they can't do the kind of horrible thing they did to the World Trade Center ever again.
were you?
I was the I in Pistons in the 89 and 90 championship years.
You look more like an O now. So what do you got?
Well, I averaged 29 points a game.
Let me see what you got.
P-I-S-T-O.
Oh, free throws?
82%.
Now that's something we can work on, isn't it?
Time to punch in. The Pistons are going to work. See Jordan, Shaq, and Kobe for free with the big game plan, starting at only $99.
Positive.
Anytime's a good time.
Anytime's a good time for a big idea. Introducing IHOP's latest, Skillets. 5 delicious skillets filled with big, bold ingredients like hearty red-skinned potatoes, topped with favorites like steak, ham, and bacon. A taste so big it's like nothing you've ever had before. So come into IHOP for one of our brand new skillets, starting at $3.99, and perfect for breakfast, lunch, dinner, anytime. Anytime's a good time for IHOP.
It's the Mercury 2001 clearance, with great model year-end savings on every 2001 Mercury in stock, including Mercury Sable LS Premium with no-charge leather seating surfaces, no-charge ABS, power-adjustable pedals, and a 5-star crash test rating. Now, returning lessees can lease one for just $249 a month for 24 months, with $25.64 cash due at signing during the Mercury 2001 clearance. See your Metro Detroit Mercury dealer today.
Show them the universe, that the sky is no limit. Being a hero doesn't take a lot, it just means a lot. Kindergarten teachers know that before children start school, from 0 to 5, every interaction is critical. It's what you do that matters. So be there. Be their hero. Be their hero from 8-0.
Before we go tonight, let's get you caught up on the key developments as America strikes back against terrorism.
White House says Phase 1 of Operation Enduring Freedom was a success. American and allied forces unleashed a punishing assault that hit key terrorist targets in Afghanistan, including 2 locations that house parts of the Taliban headquarters. First wave of action was launched shortly after noon our time today.
But as day breaks in that region of the world, it appears Osama bin Laden survived the attack. Before the strike, the terrorist leader released a video statement warning, quote, "The U.S. will never dream of security until its armies leave the land of Muhammad."
Tonight, the U.S. warns there may be plans for new attacks and that authorities are on the highest levels of alert. So locally, there is beefed up security from the Windsor border all the way to the Pontiac Silverdome, where the Lions play on national TV Monday night.
Well, we want to thank you for watching Local First News at 11, and we urge you to stay with Local 4, NBC News, and click on Detroit.com for continuing coverage as America strikes back.
Of course, complete coverage resuming here at 5 a.m. on Local First News first thing in the morning. We're going to rejoin MSNBC's coverage here in just a minute, and a special edition of Local First News, I should mention, coming up tomorrow afternoon at 4 o'clock. But as we leave you tonight, if you're with us this morning on Flashpoint, we want to again bring you a special video, I should say, put to a very special song recorded by Kitty Donahoe, local folk singer and songwriter, and this is called There Are No Words. Have a good night.
We intend to oppose it wherever it is.
More than 2 weeks ago, I gave Taliban leaders a series of clear and specific demands. Close terrorist training camps, hand over leaders of the Al-Qaeda network, and return all foreign nationals, including American citizens unjustly detained in your country. None of these demands were met. And now, the Taliban will pay a price.
We have now no choice. So we will act. And our determination in acting is total. We will not let up or rest until our objectives are met in full.
This is NBC News continuing live coverage. America Strikes Back. Here is Brian Williams.
It is already Monday here in New York. Good evening to you once again. I'm Brian Williams. Our coverage continues now of what has become the air war over Afghanistan, with U.S. and British forces looking to hit and root out mostly Taliban-controlled military targets. Here are the stories we are covering at this hour. The Pentagon confirming, of course, that the first round of military flights, even humanitarian flights, has concluded. Most people agree that in the light of day now, what's going on is called BDA, bomb damage assessment. In other words, what did they hit, what didn't they hit, and do they have to tweak the target list for today? It's been theorized some of the bombers for the night strikes might already be loaded up and ready to take off. The president, adding to the drama of the day, talked to a live national TV audience from the Treaty Room in an address that was even broadcast to baseball and football stadium audiences on big screen scoreboard televisions. He announced the military operation was underway and reprised much of his speech to a joint session of Congress, at least the portion that ended, "We will not fail." And overwhelming support for the Bush-led American military effort. Most Americans telling an NBC News Washington Post poll they are waiting and willing to wait for several years if that's what it takes. 90% approval rating of what he did. 87% approve the support of the approach that the president has chosen in this case. Now to an area of the world that saw flashes and felt the concussions as the Allied aircraft came over and landed and sent their ordnance to the ground. NBC News correspondent Tom Aspel in Afghanistan was rather close to the incoming earlier today. Tom?
Good morning, Brian. Well, we're 3 hours into daylight now, and as you pointed out earlier, probably waiting the results of bomb damage assessment here. Last night when the attacks began, the first indication we had was the sparkle of AAA fire over the skies and over Kabul, and we saw 2 or 3 huge orange explosions and felt the concussion this far away. It was impossible really to see what kind of targets the planes were hitting then, but we found out later, of course, command and control centers and selected Taliban targets in and around the capital, Kabul. Now, I'm with the troops of the Northern Alliance, and immediately the attacks began, they tuned into their radios. There was a lot of traffic on their handheld radios. They are in contact with troops further up the line, facing the Taliban just across an airstrip at a place called Bagram. That's an old Russian air base built here with one of the longest runways in the country, and thought by many to be a target for the American attack. That did not happen last night. It seems that those targets were the command and control centers first of all. But the Northern Alliance troops, we had expected them to start moving depending on the size of the bombardment. It seems last night that they were more selected, so the Northern Alliance troops are currently in position, although they say in 1 or 2 days, when the attacks become heavier, that they will begin their advance through the Taliban lines. Now, the Northern Alliance foreign minister, shortly before the attacks began last night, did tell us that he had been in contact with the Americans over the last 2 or 3 days. Northern Alliance troops, he said, were ready. We're on the alert in 3 adjacent regions around Bagram Air Base on high alert. And over the past few days, they had been seen moving their armored vehicles, test firing weapons, guns on tanks and APCs. And their anti-aircraft weapons, which they use mounted on trucks. They use them as ground offensive weapons here. So it's in the air here that a wider offensive on the ground from the Northern Alliance is expected. but probably they're waiting to see the results, see if there's more bombing tonight and the night after. They listened also to President Bush's radio address, television address rather, last night on their radios, and the mood was extremely upbeat. I think they see this as a chance to move against the Taliban after a 5-year civil war, which they were losing. They only control less than 10% of the country, but they're hoping that this current offensive will open the way, at least, for them to not only take back the capital, but take control of the country. Brian?
Veteran NBC News correspondent Tom Aspel after a long and sometimes noisy night in northern Afghanistan. Tom, thank you for that. Stay safe, get some rest. Over to MSNBC.com journalist Preston Mendenhall. He is with us from Islamabad, Pakistan, where I think it's safe to say the reaction to all of this was more negative than perhaps a lot of people in the United States saw coming. Preston?
Yes, certainly, Brian. While everybody's watching for bomb damage assessment inside Afghanistan, we're looking for anti-U.S. sentiment damage here in Pakistan. In less than an hour, we're expecting a press conference by the president of Pakistan, General Pervez Musharraf, the military ruler who took control in 1999, has been a fairly vocal supporter of the U.S. campaign against terror and certainly the strikes on Afghanistan. This morning, we're expecting from him to get his assessment. We're also hoping that he will detail a bit more what plans he is taking to consolidate his power. There are reports in the newspapers, some of them confirmed, some of them not, that there was a reshuffling in the military last night. A couple of senior generals were passed on or put into retirement, should we say, or handed in their resignations, but not coincidentally, I think, right when the attacks happened. Also reports that the head of the ISI, which is the very secretive intelligence services here, the CIA of Pakistan, the head of the ISI has tendered his resignation, and that it would be accepted today by President Musharraf. The ISI is one of the key backers of the Taliban, has been pro-Taliban over the year, providing funding and logistics for the Taliban since its beginnings in the early 1990s. Pakistan obviously has a very vested interest in Afghanistan and for many years in the Taliban, being a neighbor here and trying to have a counterbalance to its rival India. It has always been supportive of governments inside, or tried to install or be supportive of governments inside Afghanistan. So we're expecting to hear from President Musharraf in the next 45 minutes. Also, one other worry here, Brian, is from these senior religious leaders who have been very vocal in their anti-U.S. sentiment in the last couple of weeks. They are expected to try and have some protests today, although we are also thinking that President Musharraf may announce that they're going to crack down on that and not allow protests of any kind. In recent weeks, of course, we've seen several thousand in the street at any given time protesting against the United States involvement in the region and also against the government's support of the United States. Yesterday, Saturday here, local time, 2 of these senior clerics, religious leaders, were detained, some for just a few hours, but one for 24 hours, and put under house arrest. It was expected that that move was made to try and limit their contact with their supporters and limit the amount of protests that could be mustered against the United States and the government. That house arrest has been lifted, although I would say that the statements we've had from these religious leaders so far have been somewhat muted. Possibly the government efforts to try and keep that anti-U.S. sentiment, anti-government sentiment to a minimum may have succeeded, because there have been no calls for jihad so far. Holy wars, which we heard in the last couple of weeks, so far a fairly muted reaction, although there are plans to try and get some protests today. Last night there was one of only about 100 people in Peshawar, some tear gas fired. So far fairly limited, but it is the early hours here, Brian. We're waiting to see the reaction of the president of Pakistan, and we'll be back to you as soon as we have that, Brian.
All right. Thank you for that. Preston Mendenhall, NBC News correspondent in Pakistan for us tonight. Thanks. And then there is Uzbekistan to the north. Uzbekistan shares a border with Afghanistan. Their participation as an air base for certain missions was crucial. Our report on the activity there from NBC News correspondent Jim Maceda.
Uzbekistan, a Muslim land of mostly poor farmers and ruled by a former communist, is the only country bordering Afghanistan that has allowed U.S. forces access to its airspace and bases. A surprise deal reached during U.S. Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld's lightning visit to Uzbekistan Thursday. So now U.S. warplanes gaining a direct line of sight on Afghanistan, 100 miles away, and its capital, Kabul, only another 250 miles further southeast. And this over friendly anti-Taliban territory, minimizing enemy fire. But human rights advocates warn that teaming up with the likes of Karimov, a man who rules by allegedly beating and torturing all opposition, could backfire.
The U.S. government has a profound interest in not portraying itself as aligned with those brutal policies and then having that resentment turn towards the U.S.
Tonight we've heard overflights by what sounded like U.S. military planes as this U.S.-Uzbeki partnership begins to play itself out in a marriage of convenience that's fraught with danger. Jim Maseda, NBC News, Southern Uzbekistan.
After what we believe was a completely successful, more or less, first day of air operations, the modern-day Pentagon is always very, very anxious to get to the news media video and audio results of that. We've seen the first fragmentary pictures out of the region. Now, apparently, we have heard from some of the pilots of the air missions via conference call. Correspondent Suzanne Malveaux on duty at the Pentagon tonight with first word of that. Suzanne?
Good morning, Brian. It's 24/7, a lot of activity buzzing here at the Pentagon because, of course, they want to provide the latest video as well as audio. We heard from some pilots just a couple of hours ago. We had some ground rules, but these were pilots that led the effort, the B-52s, the B-1 bombers that struck overnight, and they wanted to share their own personal stories. We were told that we could only use their first names. They were in an undisclosed location, but we got a chance as a group of reporters to ask them by telephone what their own personal experiences were, and they were very similar, saying that they felt a great deal of pride. One of them even saying that they had painted on one of the bombers NYPD, although all of them said they didn't know anybody personally who was lost in New York or at the Pentagon. They all felt a great sense of duty. Let's take a listen to the audio tape.
I think everybody, no matter what job they had, came out to support the launch of the jets. Very patriotic, and we could imagine what was going on back at home, and we felt very proud. The mission meant something tonight. It was more the underlying purpose of it all. And it was emotional, as well as you had a job to do, so it was a good balance to keep you in check, and everyone performed up to standards.
We ask a lot of those who wear our uniform.
We had the ability to listen to a little bit of the president's speech. Kind of made chills go up my back. Made me real proud to be an American, proud to be in the military, and very proud to be part of this team. You felt very proud. It's like being a football player at Super Bowl day. You know, you're there to do a job, and you want everybody to be there behind you. And we had public support, good leadership. The enlisted troops were there behind us, waving flags, and it was a great feeling.
The president counted on us to do a job, and the people counted on us to do a job tonight. And when you see flags waving you off, it makes you feel like you're part of a special team, and that's what this is all about tonight.
Whether you're from Manhattan or Washington, D.C. area, it doesn't really matter. You know, we're all Americans, and we're all in this together.
Now, Brian, these are young men who had to leave their families. They say they weren't given notification of weeks, but just simply days when they had to say goodbye. They also have no idea how long they're actually going to be over there, but they've been given their assignments. It's a combination of those from the National Guard as well as the reserves as well as full-time military personnel. We have been told by military officials here that they expect that this first round of bombing, these airstrikes, will last for 3 or 4 days, and they are confident they'll be able to gain full mastery of the airspace, not only because the Taliban doesn't have very much of a military infrastructure, but also because this is such a massive campaign. They expect this will happen over the next couple of days, and then they'll go into the next phase. Brian?
Suzanne Malveaux from the Pentagon tonight, the first voices of this conflict that we have heard directly anyway. Suzanne, thank you for that. And for some perspective, after what's been a long day militarily and in many other ways, we are joined tonight by one of our military analysts and experts, retired Colonel Ken Allard of the U.S. Army. Ken, where to begin? I guess the package they chose for the attack, B-1 bomber, B-2, B-52, Tomahawk cruise missiles, and then we learned later F-14 Tomcats carrier-based, FA-18s carrier-based. A lot of people expressed surprise that they brought in the more small and nimble jets, that the work of the big jets was apparently so good, so thorough.
Well, Brian, that sounds like the first team. We've talked about this before. But what you have to have is you have to have the top line that you've got anytime that you are going to put America's prestige on the line. You need to be able to hit those targets very precisely. You need not only those big jets, but indeed some of the smaller ones. And what's, I think, pretty obvious is what we've been saying for at least a week, that you've got to do this from as close to 360 degrees all around that country as you possibly can, because you dare not ever set the pattern where they always know where you're coming from. And it sounds like well, we got them from a whole bunch of different directions with our top-of-the-line stuff.
Speaking of top of the line, I've heard it said that while the expression Taliban Air Force is not quite an oxymoron, they are flying a lot of rusty old MiGs. Is that correct?
It really is, and it's one of the reasons why I think you had you know, the F-14s and the F-18s up there, so that they wanted to come up and play. We had some folks up there that were just only too happy to accommodate them.
Now, Ken, when they light up their radar, their anti-aircraft positions to paint our aircraft and presumably try to shoot them down, it's that very moment that some of our munitions go right down that radar path and find them. But are you worried about the older, more simple shoulder-mounted Stinger missiles that may be kicking around the region, actually in some pretty large numbers?
Well, Brian, you're exactly right. If they want to turn the radars on, there's a thing called the high-speed anti-radiation missile, or HARM, and it's coming right back down that beam at them, so that is a really good way to die. But indeed, it is precisely the fact that what we saw them do against the Russians was the ability to use all of that old stuff, that anti-aircraft artillery. It's not sophisticated at all, but you've got people that will cart it up to the top of a mountain and fire it blindly. Well, sometimes you get that golden BB that can take down a high-performance aircraft very, very easily. So it's one of the things that you always worry about. But I think it also shows why the first priority in any air campaign like this is to establish total dominance and total superiority in the air, so that you can use that space for whatever you're about to go do, be that either humanitarian, food drops to the refugees, or direct support of actions on the ground.
Ken, explain the electronics, if you will, incoming and outgoing. During the conflict, I know we come in with aircraft that have names like Prowler and Wild Weasel, and they are jammers. So explain their role, and also explain how we monitor to see if during the airstrike, someone on the ground is sending signals out via telephone or anything else to perhaps call in a counterstrike in the United States of some form. How would we know that?
Brian, this is called command and control warfare. The steps that you outline, it's called suppression of enemy air defenses. You go in with the Prowlers. These are electronic warfare aircraft, and they have got one mission in life, and that is to suppress any kind of surface-to-air missile threat, any kind of similarly directed anti-aircraft weapons. While that's all going on, we have command and control airplanes up that are looking for all those other signals, and they have one basic objective in mind, and that is to find where those signals are emanating from precisely so that you can do a counterstrike against them. The whole idea here is that if they want to engage those U.S. aircraft directly, we'll be only too happy to accommodate them, but again, on our terms.
How does a Prowler work? How do you confuse electronically? By scrambling a signal?
Well, you've got a variety of means to do it, but one of the things that is most effective is simple barrage jamming. That essentially renders them right down to the level of pure optics. In other words, all they've got is the human eye, unaided. And that's one of the finest things that you can do, because if you're simply shooting blind, the odds are fairly long, although, as I said, you do have that chance of the golden BB. But the way you play the odds is that you make it very, very difficult for these guys to target, to paint your aircraft.
Colonel Ken Allard, something tells me we'll be talking again. Ken, thank you very much for coming on tonight. We'll take a break. Our coverage will continue right after this.
Tired of crawling around on your knees or doing endless sit-ups? Introducing the revolutionary Ab Energizer system, featuring 21st century technology that's a simple, easy way to help firm and tone your abs without breaking a sweat. And it's also great for your lower back, buns, and thighs. The secret is Ab Energizer's electronic impulses that stimulate your abs so they contract and relax as if you're doing a sit-up. Now you can get up to 700 muscle contractions in just 10 minutes and get the tone and definition you've always wanted.
I've gone from a waist 37 to a waist 34.
Work out your abs anywhere, watching TV, at the office, even around the house. Why spend $120 for a single unit product? With the double unit Ab Energizer, you get 2 modes and 10 settings to maximize your workout. For just 2 easy payments of only $29.95, your complete system includes the Ab Energizer belt with 2 units, tightening gel, meal plan, instruction guide, and carrying case. You also get a free 30-day supply of Diet Energizer with its fat-burning formula. If you don't lose at least 2 inches off your waist in the first 30 days, return it for a full refund. To order, call now.
You've got to cut costs, people. Ideas.
We could open an account on FedEx.com, save 10% on online express shipping.
Okay, how about this? We open an account on FedEx.com, we save 10% on online express shipping.
That is wonderful. You just said the same thing I said, only you did this.
No, I did this. Makes all the difference.
Bingo.
That's good.
Right on the nose.
That's a great idea.
Everyone from the president on down in the days since September 11th has been trying to tell Americans to go on about their lives just as if it was still, say, September 10th. As NBC News correspondent Ann Thompson found out today, in the center of New York City, a lot of people have taken that advice.
Under banners and signs with patriotic messages, New York's Times Square bustled. Thousands of tourists and New Yorkers going to plays and restaurants as the U.S. military bombed Afghanistan.
I think we need to get the terrorists, but I don't think innocent lives should have to be lost.
Near the reason for the bombing, the ruins of the World Trade Center, thousands walked by on Broadway to get a glimpse of Ground Zero.
What they did here cannot go unpunished.
It's a long time coming, and I'm happy to know that we finally retaliated.
Across much of the country, strong support for the retaliation at Atlanta's varsity hot dog stand.
They killed over 6,000 Americans, and it's time to send a clear message to all the other nations that might harbor terrorists. That's not going to be acceptable.
The airstrikes topic A at tailgate parties at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers football game.
Terrorism needs to stop, and I think this is just our statement right now.
On Chicago's Michigan Avenue,
if they've got a plan to get us in there, to get it done, and get us back home, I think that would be the best thing.
But in Los Angeles, over 100 people rallied for peace, reminding the nation of the potential cost of retaliation.
It's very tragic what happened in World Trade Center, but we don't want to multiply that by 10 to 100 times against innocent people.
Tonight, the streets here in New York continue to be busy. There is a certain relief that military action has begun, but a wariness about the future, still marked by uncertainty. Ann Thompson, NBC News, New York.
Earlier this evening, we took our questions to the source of all information, New York City Mayor Rudolph Giuliani, specifically on this day when the FBI was quoted as telling all local law enforcement organizations around the country to heighten security to its fullest possible extent in light of the military attacks overseas. The mayor of New York told us that, if anything, it's gotten better every day in his city.
We keep reducing the zone that's affected by it virtually every day. In other words, we've reclaimed a lot of it already. So we keep narrowing the zone. Stuyvesant High School, for example, is going to open on Tuesday. A lot of people have gotten back into Battery Park North and South. Not as many as we would like, but a lot of people. So the zone will keep narrowing. The removal of structures and debris is going to take at least, another 3-4 months just for the surface stuff, and then probably altogether 9 or 10 months when you consider that a lot of the building has been impacted into the ground, about 6 to 8 stories down. And we still don't know how complex that's going to be.
Mr. Mayor, oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to ask. It's pretty sick that we're learning all these new terms from the security business, but now we're learning terms like soft targets, things like cruise ships being stopped by the Coast Guard at the mouth of New York Harbor. I don't suppose you'd tell us what you are watching more closely than other things these days?
I think it's safe to say we're watching everything that we can think of and everything that we're alerted to. We're in an era in which, because the unimaginable happened, you can't exclude things that in the past you would have excluded. I mean, in a normal day in New York City, pre-September 11, we would get, 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 bomb threats and mini emergencies and this kind of thing and that kind of thing. And very often, the police commissioner would report it to me and would say, this is a kook, or you don't have to pay attention to this, or we've been able to discount it. Those things now, I think this is probably true all over the country. You take with, you got to be more careful, you got to be more cautious, and I think that's the thing that actually is going on. And if people see a building evacuated or a bridge or tunnel turned down, they should not necessarily assume the worst. We're doing it, if we do it, we're doing it out of an excess of caution.
Excess of caution indeed. New York Mayor Rudolph Giuliani, and on the whole, not a terrible day for New York. After all, both the Giants and the Jets won their respective football games, though with no blimps overhead because of security precautions. Now, about the markets, speaking of New York, a look at the Dow and the NASDAQ since the attack on September 11th shows both indexes down a little over 5% of their overall value. Close watchers of stocks know that we had a pretty robust run-up last week, but it still didn't make up for all the damage. We are joined tonight in our studios by CNBC stocks editor Pat Bolin. And Pat, I guess the question is, what are market watchers saying about what might happen in the morning?
Well, Brian, they always tell you the same thing. Markets hate uncertainty. So we are seeing some of that uncertainty being reflected in the Asian markets, and recognize that it is a holiday in Tokyo. So that's the biggest market there, and not really, therefore we're missing that gauge of how the market might react. But we are seeing some pressure in the Hong Kong marketplace and the other Asian marketplaces, and they're really waiting to see what happens in North America or in Europe for that matter. And I cast my memory back to Desert Storm, because in the first day of Desert Storm, the market actually rallied. The Dow Jones opened slightly lower and then rallied 4%, and it followed it the next day with a 1% move. So these are important factors to look at in terms of, hey, we finally got this ball rolling in terms of military action, and then we're going to get feedback as to how that military action played out. Some of the safe havens that we might have seen have moved a little bit. Gold's a little bit stronger. We have seen a little bit of movement out of the American dollar, a little bit of pressure versus the Japanese yen, for instance. But when you cast your mind back to September the 11th, when the U.S. dollar dropped 2 yen almost instantaneously, the response is somewhat muted first thing this morning. Not a big move in the U.S. dollar versus the yen. Swiss franc maybe a little bit stronger. And I think the focus will have to be on defensive, literally defensive stocks that are involved in the defensive business, Boeing, Lockheed Martin, those kinds of names, as well as safe havens in the marketplace. And I think that that's where the focus will be first thing in the morning, and what we're likely to see in the European markets as well.
And are there any signs, any tea leaves worth reading about how different sectors of different parts of the economy are going to react to this? I guess it's safe to say that some parts of the economy may be like or aren't as scared off by military action as others.
Absolutely correct. One area that you would expect to be scared off, for instance, would be the airlines. And we're seeing United already saying that they're going to keep it to their 1,900 flight schedule. They also, at the same time, made an announcement on carry-on luggage. They're going to restrict your carry-on luggage to 1. But that's being expected by all the airlines, and they're all dealing with their own security concerns. So that's already factored into the marketplace per se. But you've got the general economy and the general feeling among the populace. The very fact that they canceled the Emmys gives you an idea of the concern, the level of concern that there might be some kind of retaliation on a security basis in general population. And I think that that will play into the uncertainty in the marketplace. And as they say, the markets do hate uncertainty and the public hates uncertainty. So it's not as though the public's going to rush into buying big ticket items and those kinds of things that are needed to boost the economy, given that uncertainty.
Pat Bollin, stocks editor at CNBC. Pat, as always, thank you for coming by. Look for you tomorrow on the air.
Thanks, Brian.
We'll take a break and more of our coverage when we come right back.
Technologies and more. Building a better world. Hitachi. Inspire the next.
Tired of crawling around on your knees or doing endless sit-ups? Introducing the revolutionary Ab Energizer system, featuring 21st century technology that's a simple, easy way to help firm and tone your abs without breaking a sweat. And it's also great for your lower back, buns, and thighs. The secret is Ab Energizer's electronic impulses that stimulate your abs so they contract and relax as if you're doing a sit-up. Now you can get up to 700 muscle contractions in just 10 minutes and get the tone and definition you've always wanted.
I've gone from a waist 37 to a waist 34.
Work out your abs anywhere, watching TV, at the office, even around the house. Why spend $120 for a single unit product? With the double unit Ab Energizer, you get 2 modes and 10 settings to maximize your workout. For just 2 easy payments of only $29.95, your complete system includes the Ab Energizer belt with 2 units, tightening gel, meal plan, instruction guide, and carrying case. You also get a free 30-day supply of Diet Energizer with its fat-burning formula. If you don't lose at least 2 inches off your waist in the first 30 days, return it for a full refund. To order, call now.
Okay, I'm here. Good. I just wanted to make sure that the new computers are ready to ship. They're ready. And they're loaded with the latest operating system? They're loaded. Shh. And your store guys are ready to teach people all the stuff they can do? They're all set. You know, Ted, you're lucky to have a cow for a best friend. Dogs are so overrated.
Introducing the new long-lasting scent of Bob. Bob showers with new Zest Rainforest Falls. The cleaner rinsing lather leaves Bob feeling fresh and clean long into the day, which makes having Bob around quite pleasant.
Hello.
New Rainforest Falls Zest. You just can't find a better clean.
Economic outlook is still very...
yield to call and yield to mature.
Raymond James, you first.
Economic
the Dow up 300.
Citizens of Kabul now are fleeing.
This campaign is far from over.
The highest state of alert by the Coast Guard.
More importantly, the unexpected. What will happen next?
NBC News coverage of America Strikes Back continues now. Here again is Brian Williams.
Good evening once again. We have a look now at the stories we are covering here at the bottom of the hour. It's all over, at least the first days, first waves of offensive military strikes. That's according to the Pentagon. They have also ended the humanitarian food drop flights. As you'll recall, they want to send purposely a mixed message in addition to the military strikes, helping the refugees that are on the run and those yet to come. There are claims tonight from the Taliban that the U.S. air raids killed civilians. There's no hard evidence, and we will see this kind of thing go back and forth each day of the airstrikes, as is customary. The other side trying to prove that the United States has caused unnecessary collateral and civilian damage. And a stunning 91% of Americans in a new NBC News Wall Street Journal poll believe it's likely terrorists will retaliate and strike again in America. 8% are saying it is unlikely. This poll just completed tonight. And by the way, the FBI is urging local law enforcement agencies across the country to go to their highest level of alert tonight. One of the chilling moments of this day came as U.S. pilots were in the air over selected targets in Afghanistan. A piece of tape came out of a regional Arabic language cable network in the region. It showed in daylight Osama bin Laden and some of his chief aides surrounded by automatic weapons and rocks. And in the tape, Americans got to hear bin Laden threaten them yet again.
In these days, Israeli tanks overrun Palestine, in Jenin, Ramallah, Rafah, Beit Jala, and other parts of Islamic lands. And we do not hear any voices raised or any reacting nation. However, when the sword fell upon America, they had the nerve to mourn the loss of innocent life.
Osama bin Laden on tape. It is a piece of tape that U.S. intelligence officials are obviously, and for good reason, poring over to get all the information, glean all the information they can from it. We are joined tonight by NBC News correspondent Donna Friesen. She is in our Tel Aviv bureau. This has been an interesting couple of days in U.S.-Israeli relations. Ariel Sharon really was criticized for his harsh wording, invoking the word appeasement where it came to the United States, making coalition partners out of enemies of Israel. The U.S. shot back. He was rebuked by Colin Powell. Where does the relationship stand tonight, Donna?
Well, that's a good question, Brian. We're told officially that the spat between Sharon and Bush is over, though analysts here in Israel are quite sure there is some residual tension between the two leaders that may persist for some time. Officially, there have been apologies from Prime Minister Sharon. I understand he apologized to one American newspaper 5 times. So we're told here by the embassy as well that all the ruffled feathers have been smoothed over. Secretary of State Colin Powell calling it all a cloudburst that will pass. So we shall see. We can't tell you this morning that the strategic relationship between the countries still seems as strong as ever. Now, the sun is just coming up here in Israel. It has been quiet overnight. Israeli TV doing updates every hour following the story. And the newspapers just arrived. Their front pages filled with news of the strikes on Afghanistan, like the rest of the world watching what is going on there. The headlines all in Hebrew, of course. Mariv newspaper saying the headline is "The war has begun," and the sub-headline, "Israel is not part of the war, but the threat," it goes on to say, the threat to Israel is the possibility of a wave of local terror attacks, speculating that perhaps militant Palestinian and Islamic groups like Hamas, Islamic Jihad, and Hezbollah will take advantage of the situation and try and launch attacks against Israel, trying to further their aims. The other major newspaper here, Haaretz, has a picture taken from television last night of the attacks in Afghanistan. The headline here is a quote from George Bush: "The struggle will be long." And again about Israel, what Haaretz has to say is that as long as the attacks are not against Iraq or against Hezbollah directly, it is unlikely that Israel will be targeted. But also people here not holding out
the possibility that Osama bin Laden could point and target his rage against Israel. Now, last night, among the many phone calls made by President George Bush to world leaders, he called Prime Minister Sharon and briefed him on the attacks. Sharon wished success to the president, to the American people. But Israeli officials say their country will not become embroiled in this U.S.-led assault. And that videotape that you showed a moment ago of Osama bin Laden, indeed very chilling videotape. In it, bin Laden also says, "I swear to God that America will not live in peace before peace reigns in Palestine and before the army of infidels depart the land of the Prophet Muhammad." That a reference, of course, to American troops on Saudi Arabian soil. No official reaction from Israel to that statement, but I'm sure Israel doesn't want to get drawn to a war of words with Osama bin Laden, and it is also quite likely the U.S. has asked Israel to keep a low profile right now. Officially, people here being told to carry on as usual. One Israeli cabinet minister saying there is no threat to Israel, and Prime Minister Sharon did meet with the country's top security, military, and intelligence officials late last night, afterwards issuing a statement saying there is no information at this stage that there is a threat to Israel as a result of the attacks in Afghanistan. But we do know that Israeli embassies and other potential Jewish targets around the world have had their security tightened. Also important to note, no official response yet from the Palestinian side. In Ramallah, there was a comment from, in Ramallah in the West Bank, from Hassan Youssef of the Islamist militant group Hamas, who said the strikes were pure terrorism. But Brian, it will be interesting to see today what kind of reaction we see on the streets in the West Bank and Gaza. You'll remember the pictures of some people celebrating there after the attacks on September 11th. And I'm sure that Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat will do his utmost to try and suppress any demonstrations today that may show support for Osama bin Laden. Brian?
Donna Friesen in our Tel Aviv bureau. Donna, thank you for that report. And as we heard on the tape, Osama bin Laden at one point mentioned that America had been hit by this recent September 11th attack, as he put it, in some of its softest spots, and thank God for that. What kind of man would say such a thing? To the broader question, who is Osama bin Laden? We have some answers tonight from Dateline NBC and correspondent Jane Pauley.
I don't think he's crazy. He is devious, he is clever, he is relentless, and he is patient.
But he is not a madman.
But he is not a madman.
Judith Miller is a reporter for the New York Times. She's covered the Arab world since 1983, when she was chief of the Times Cairo bureau.
Is calling this even fanaticism too simplistic?
Fanatic is actually a very good word to describe them. They are highly motivated, they are highly disciplined, and we underestimate them at our peril.
Dr. Gerald Post is a professor of political psychology at George Washington University. He's also a psychiatrist.
These people are distinctly not psychologically disturbed. In fact, interestingly, psychiatrically disturbed individuals are expelled from the groups because they're considered a security risk.
Many say it's a perversion of Islam, that the Quran condemns suicide. But radical Islamic sects do not call it suicide. In their interpretation, not to act is immoral.
The motivation for these acts is both religious and social. And the social motivation is a fusion of nationalism and radical Islam.
What did America do to unleash this hell upon us?
Well, according to Osama bin Laden, we defiled sacred Saudi and Islamic soil.
When?
In 1990 and 91, when we sent American and international troops to defend his country against Iraqi soldiers.
Just as the Soviets had defiled Islamic soil in Afghanistan in 1979. Financed in part by his money, the Mujahideen then drove the Soviets out.
He needed an enemy.
But he needed an enemy, precisely, and he also had an enemy because the Palestinian people were being, quote, oppressed. And it was the duty of all Muslims to come and rescue them. And the Arab countries were being, quote, oppressed by autocratic, horrible rulers whose rule he also wanted to terminate. And he felt that by mobilizing and training Arabs all over the world and Muslims from all over the world, he could accomplish this.
Bin Laden and other radical factions of Islam frighten many in the Arab world too. They may not represent mainstream Muslims, but they are determined and well-financed. But Judith Miller argues that to persist in seeing them as crazy fanatics is dangerous.
We have to get rid of this image of these people as kind of wild-eyed fanatics who are disorganized and can't get their act together.
Why do we have to?
I think if we don't discard these images and stereotypes, we will underestimate the enemy.
What is it about the American psyche that may be undermining our own interests?
I think sometimes any democracy is ill-equipped because we are open. That is our trademark. We are ill-equipped to fight people who are looking constantly for our weaknesses, for our vulnerabilities, for ways in which we can be hurt.
Judith Miller of the New York Times in that look at who is Osama bin Laden from Jane Pauley and Dateline NBC. We are happy to be joined tonight by terrorism expert Steve Emerson. He's specialized in investigating militant Islam networks around the globe over the past 7 or so years. And chiefly, Steve, I'm curious to hear what you thought of that taped message. And first, there's been a little bit of a journalistic debate about this today. Does it deserve a worldwide airing? Someone said earlier today, you know, we didn't give Hitler a whole lot of airtime during World War II. What's the chance there could have been some signal or code in it to his followers that could have perhaps triggered something?
Clearly, there could have been a signal or a code, but by and large, he's got other effective means of communication, as evidenced by his use of the internet, the use of very disguised, clandestine, encrypted communications. So I would say that, you know, over the last few hours, people have been wondering about this at the NSC, National Security Council, at the Defense Department, and CIA. I think they're coming to realize now, at least I spoke to some of them within the past hour, that it was probably not a method of communication with his followers. But having said that, clearly he is trying to rally the troops and recruit new followers and to reacquire a base of operations, because essentially today his laboratory was destroyed. He's no longer going to have the al-Qaeda camps available to train people. And remember now, of the 19 hijackers, there probably were at least 13 or 14 who trained in the camps of al-Qaeda in Afghanistan in order to be ready for this attack. And I mean training, not just military training, but indoctrinated with religious dogma that basically makes them, quote, fanatic, or really makes them so dangerous.
So what do we learn about him watching him make this tape? We learn, I guess, certain aspects of his temper up close. We learn that he's apparently a narcissist, and we get to hear him say the issues that set him off, especially regarding Israel and America on Saudi Arabian soil.
Well, I must tell you that you know, I've been looking at, several years ago, I was in Afghanistan actually with his organization. I didn't know it at the time, interestingly enough, because they were using cover front groups. But I spent time with the leader of the organization who is now dead, that basically set up al-Qaeda. And I was given almost 90 videos of Abdullah Azzam, a Palestinian militant who formed the jihad in Afghanistan. And I was struck tonight by the acute similarity between what Abdullah Azzam said in 1988 and 1987 and how Osama bin Laden, what he said tonight. I mean, they were parallel and almost identical, and sort of calling for attacks on the superpower, the remaining superpower, the U.S., the infidel, and saying that the U.S. is supporting oppressive movements around the world. You know, obviously he updated for current events. What it shows to me is that he's gearing up for a new round of recruitment around the world to carry out attacks. And what we learned in the embassy bombing trial held in New York last year and this year is that he telegraphs to the worldwide community what he intends to do. If he's going to give an interview like this, it's almost a guarantee he's going to carry out a strike.
Well, let's talk about that very quickly. If the last strike was planned for so many years, and there are current fears of a second wave, would it be something more random? Would it be individual actors, or would he have the ability to send out a signal, a pulse that could launch something that has been in the pipeline?
Well, there are two things that may occur. One is he may get the freelancers out there, people who subscribe to militant Islamic theology but are not tethered to him in any organizational way. Sort of like the typical suicide bomber who walks into an Israeli restaurant without being organized by the Hamas leadership. Number two is that he's got sleeper cells. And basically, he could have people that have already been here for the last 3 or 4 years, like the people in the hijacking plot of September 11th, that are just waiting for that green light. So, the fact of the matter is he's got two potential sources of recruits to carry out these operations. And, it doesn't take much, unfortunately, to conjure up more than a dozen ways in which he can inflict a paralysis in the U.S. with just a minor effort with a car bomb.
Steve Emerson, terrorism expert, thank you very much for coming on the air with us tonight. We'll take a break. Our coverage continues right after this.
Beautiful car.
200 horsepower, V6 engine. It's got your name written all over it. You like it?
I love it.
I feel a test drive coming on. You ready? I'm ready.
I'm done. I want this car. I will take this car.
You've got to take it for a test drive.
No, I'm going to take the car. I want it.
Let's put this thing on the road.
Let's go for a test drive. Test drive over. I want the car.
Chevy Impala.
I love this car.
We'll be there.
Looking for this week's top choices in premium movies and sports? Take a shortcut. Turn to DirecTV Movies this week and DirecTV Sports this week. For previews and information around the clock.
That was good.
Back to back. Watch DirecTV Movies this week and DirecTV Sports this week on channels 212 and 500. Don't miss the best in movies and sports from DirecTV.
Honey, let's go.
Can't imagine losing your DirecTV service when you move? If you're already a DirecTV customer, it's easy to continue your DirecTV service at your new home. So when you're ready to move, call us at 1-877-407-4720 or visit our website.
Nice place.
Man in box not included.
Stay with us for continuing coverage.
Just in case some people have forgotten why American pilots would be willing to fly on a 33-hour mission from Missouri to Afghanistan before overnighting and then coming home, this is why the still smoldering and smoking remains of the World Trade Center. Note the welders in the upper left-hand corner, the acetylene torches that are going 24 hours a day, the crane in the lower left-hand corner, saying nothing of the ubiquitous fire hoses. It's still, they say, 2,000 degrees in some parts of the lower core, 6 stories below the earth. Americans have had an extraordinary response to what happened today in an instant poll conducted by NBC News and the Wall Street Journal. We have just a sample of it for you now. Do you approve of today's military action in Afghanistan? 90% to 4. Will terrorists strike the U.S. again? 90% say yes, and it's likely. But is it worth it? Is combating terrorism worth the risk of retaliation against the U.S. if it means they attack us again? An overwhelming 89% say yes. It's the kind of thing we'd like to get some reaction on from Jonathan Alter, Newsweek magazine columnist and NBC News contributing correspondent. Jonathan, as I said earlier to one of your colleagues, these are World War II numbers.
They really are, and I think it's partly, Brian, because people see that the lessons of World War II are very applicable in this case. The big lesson from that war was that the pre-war appeasement of Adolf Hitler, symbolized by Neville Chamberlain's activities at Munich in 1938, didn't work, that we couldn't negotiate with Hitler. We had to just kill him. And this is what I think the American people understand now about terrorism, that you can make some ultimatums, you can try a little bit of diplomacy, but eventually you have to go in and do the job. So that lesson from World War II has been very fully learned.
The downside, this is intentionally flip, is the efficiency of the U.S. military. Jonathan, after all these warnings, look, don't expect one of these long-distance surgical precision strikes where we hit somebody, say, from Missouri.